Salvete omnes. This is Abbey Latin, Liber Primus, Chapter 3. This is a video lesson on the morphology of Latin's first conjugation, so conjugating verbs. Let us begin with the parts of speech. There is the noun, the pronoun, the adjective, the verb, the adverb, the preposition, the conjunction, and the interjection, the 8 parts of speech. In Latin, they are the nomen, pronomen, adjectivum, verbum, adverbium, praepositio, conjunctio, and interjectio. This lesson we will be focusing on the verbum, the verb, the Latin word for word. We may also see some adverbs and some prepositions in the coming lesson. So let us start with English grammar, talking about verbs. What is a verb? A verb is an action word. A verb shows the action or state of being which a subject, which is in the nominative case in Latin, performs. So let's talk about principal parts. Principal parts. By principal parts, I mean important parts. Principal means important. So principal parts, the important parts of English verbs. So if you were to look up a verb in an English dictionary, the English dictionary should give you the principal parts of the verb. The principal parts are necessary to correctly conjugate, that is, give all the forms of an English verb. So you should know all the principal or important parts. English principal parts, typically there are 3 of them. And if you look at these 3 phrases right here, you can figure out, if you're a native English speaker, pretty much by what sounds right, what the principal parts are of an English verb. So to figure out the first principal part, let's take, for example, the English verb love. Ask yourself, I want to blank. So to verb, insert the verb. I want to love. This first form, this first principal or important part of the verb, is known as the present indicative. The present indicative. Sometimes it has a to, a to in front of it. If there's a to, a to in front of this form, we typically call this the present infinitive. The present infinitive. So it actually has 2 names, the present indicative and the present infinitive. It's the present infinitive if it has the to, the to in front of it. So to love is the present infinitive, and love by itself, that's the present indicative. The second principal part of the verb love, that's the past tense. So ask yourself, I verbed, past tense. I did the verb in the past tense, I loved. I loved. We call this the past indicative. The verb happened in the past. If a verb has an ed, we call that a weak verb. So the third principal part, ask yourself, I have blank. I have verbed. So for love, I have loved. This is called the past participle form of the English verb. So I want to verb, I verbed, I have verbed. I want to love, I loved, I have loved. The principal parts, the necessary or important parts of the English verb love are love, loved, and loved. Some other examples are occupy. I want to occupy, the present indicative, with the to, the present infinitive. Occupied, so check out that if the verb ends in y in English, it becomes ied in the past tense. Same thing with the past participle, I have verbed, I have occupied. So this is also considered a weak verb because the past tense adds ed, or a y changes to an ied. But check out the verb take. I want to take, I took, I have taken. It's not take, taked, taked. It's take, took, taken. This vowel, take, turns into an u, took in the past tense. Germanic languages call these strong verbs. Remember, English is a Germanic language, so it retains lots of aspects that Germanic languages retain. So strong verbs and weak verbs. If past tense ends in ed, it's a weak verb. If there's a stem changer, it's a strong verb. So take turns into took. You have to know that. You have to either look that up in an English dictionary or be born in a native English speaker. So I want to break, I broke, I have broken. I want to sing, I sang, I have sung. If you don't know these correct principal parts, you could get them wrong. So you could say, I taked the book. I braked the vase. I singed a song. And those, of course, would be incorrect. You have to know that take turns into took, break becomes broke, and sing becomes sang. Properties of verbs. Verbs have person. That tells you who. Person is who is doing the action. Person can either be first, second, or third. First, second, or third person. Number refers to how many persons, how many of these persons, first, second, or third we have. Latin has singular and plural. Singular means one, first, second, or third. Plural means more than one. So first person singular, that's I. I am doing the action. But first person plural, that's not just I singular, only one of me. That's I plus someone else, and we would say we are doing the action. And then tense refers to time, when the action takes place. And the only tense we're working on in this lesson is the present tense. The action is happening right now in the present time. So in English, we use a subject pronoun. A pronoun being a word that takes the place, takes the place of a noun, like I, you, we, etc. In English, we use subject pronouns that come before the verb to tell us who's doing the action, to tell us what's the person and what's the number. We use a subject pronoun, I, you, he, she, it, etc., to tell us the person and the number. So first person singular in English, the subject pronoun is I. We put an I in front of the verb to tell us that I is doing the action. Second person singular is you, and in the past English has used thou. Third person singular is a he, a she, or an it for masculine, feminine, and neuter. First person plural is I plus someone else, so we. Second person plural is not just you singular or thou, but more than one you. Modern English doesn't differentiate much between you and you. Some people say y'all. In the past, we have used ye to differentiate from thou. And I typically use ye because ye is fun. Third person plural, it's not just one he, one she, or one it, it's plural they. They are doing the thing. So I, you, he, she, it, we, ye, they. First person singular, second person singular, third person singular, first person plural, second person plural, third person plural. Now besides using the subject pronoun, English actually conjugates, like nouns decline, verbs conjugate, that means change the form, morphology, the observation of how words change. English verbs actually conjugate or change very little. So let's take a look. So conjugation of the verb to love in the present tense. So first we need to know the verb's principal parts in English, and we know how to do that. So ask yourself the three questions. I want to verb, I verbed, I have verbed. So love. I want to love, I loved, I have loved. So love, loved, and loved are the three principal parts. Now for the present tense in English, we are only making use of the first principal part. So love looks like that, L-O-V-E, the present indicative form. So basically, we just plug and chug it into the chart. keeping the same form. The only thing that English does differently is English in the third person singular adds an S. So it's not just love, but loves. Otherwise, we use love, love, then loves. Love, love, and love. So we use love, the unaltered present indicative first principal part form throughout. How do we tell the difference then? Well, we really make use of the subject pronoun, the I, the you, the he, she, it, the we, the ye, and the they, in front of the verb, the subject of the verb to tell us what's going on, who's doing the action of the verb. So really, the only change in the present tense in English is to add the third person singular S, loves. All right, what's Latin do? Latin really doesn't use very much the subject pronoun. Instead, Latin really relies upon, once again, like with nouns, endings. So personal endings. English really only had the S added to the third person singular. Latin is a little bit more elaborate, just like in the last chapter. So these are called personal endings. These are endings which show the person, and they also show the number. So once again, we have first, second, and third person, singular, and plural, just like with English. So the endings are really important here, not so much the subject pronoun, because Latin doesn't really use subject pronouns, really only for emphasis. So laboro, laboro. The O tells us that I am doing the action. First person singular, I am doing the action, as opposed to ego laboro, where we really want to emphasize that it is I, yes, I am doing the work. I am working. The ego really emphasizes. But Latin doesn't really need the ego. Laboro works just fine on its own, because it has the ending, the first person singular O ending. So these are the personal endings. Make sure you know them. Go ahead and say OST, muss, tis, und. Don't worry about the M right now. The M we will use later, but not right now. So OST, muss, tis, und. If the verb ends in O, first person singular, that's the I. I am doing the action. If the verb ends in S, second person singular S, that means you or thou are doing the action. Third person singular ends in T, that means he, she, or it doing the action. First person plural, muss, that means we are doing the action. Second person plural, tis, ye, y'all. Second person plural, more than one you are doing the action. And then third person plural, und, they are doing the action. So really, check out the endings. OST, muss, tis, und. I, you, he, she, it, we, ye, they. All right, so let's talk about Latin principal parts. Just as Latin nouns decline, change their forms, morphology, verbs conjugate. Latin principal parts typically have, English has 3, Latin has 4 forms. Really, it lines up rather nicely with the English. It's just they have an extra first principal part. Now this is like English present indicative, only this is the I form, first person singular I form. So amo means I love, present indicative. Then the second principal part, that's the present infinitive. So put a to in front of it, like in English. To verb, to love. Amare means to love. So amo, I love. Amare, to love. Amavi, past indicative. In Latin, we call this the perfect indicative. And then the fourth principal part, amatus, the supine or the perfect passive participle. More on those guys later. We're going to be making use of the first 2 principal parts in this lesson. So check these out. Amo, amare, amavi, amatus. If the principal parts end in O, are, e, and us, some textbooks have I write us, it doesn't matter. If we have O, are, e, us, then this verb is a first conjugation verb. O, are, e, us. That makes this a first conjugation verb. All right, we have conjugated the present tense of the English verb to love. Let's go ahead and do the same thing in Latin. So first things first, you need to know the verb's principal parts. Amo, amare, amavi, amatus. You need to know all four. I know we're only using the first two in this lesson, but go ahead and memorize all four. For the present tense, you take the verb's first principal part, amo. This is also the first person singular present tense. You write that down in this blank unchanged, amo. You know from the O that this is a first person singular I verb, I love. Now, for the rest of the forms, you have to find the present stem. You go to the verb's second principal part and you chop off the RE. What's left, ama, is the verb's present stem. Write ama, the verb's present stem, and the rest of the blanks. And then add the personal endings. We already have the O, then add the S, the T, the mus, the tis, and the unt. To tell us S, that you, second person singular, you, thou, you are doing the action. T, to tell us third person singular, he, she, it is doing the action. Mus, to tell us first person plural, we are doing the action. Tis, to tell us second person plural, ye, y'all, you plural are doing the action. And unt, tell us the third plural, they are doing the action. So amo, I love, I am loving, I do love. Amas, you love, you are loving, you do love. Amat, he, she, it loves, he, she, it is loving, he, she, it does love. Amamos, we love, we are loving, we do love. Amatis, ye love, ye are loving, ye do love. And amat, they love, they are loving, they do love. Amo, amas, amat, amamos, amatis, amat. Now add this to your mental repertoire. The forms of the Latin verbs sum, esse, fui, futurus, to be. These are irregular, just like the verb to be is irregular in English. So make sure you memorize sum, esse, fui, futurus. I want to be. I was. I have been. These forms, go ahead and check out the pattern. You can see the M. I know in the previous verb we used O, but there is also M that we'll use later. Here it is, sum. S, there's the S, the T, the mus, the tis, and the unt. So note which ones have SU before the ending and ES before the ending. M, S, T, mus, tis, unt. Sum, S, est, sumus, estus, sunt. Est and sunt should be familiar to you from the previous chapter. Sum es est, sumus estus sunt. Sum, I am. Es, you are. Thou art. Est, he, she, it is. It can also mean there is, an existential est. Sumus, we are. Estis, ye are. And sunt, they are. Can also be existential sunt, there are. Remember that these verbs act as linking verbs. So linking a subject in the nominative with a predicate nominative. All right, let's practice how to conjugate a regular verb in the present tense. So we have amo, amare, amavi, amatus. I want to love, I loved, I have loved. So we have the principal parts. Before you conjugate any verb, you need to know the correct principal parts. Amo, amare, amavi, amatus. It is also helpful to know the correct principal parts in English. First things first. First person singular, the I verb form. That's just the first principal part. That's his only job, so he just drops down there, unchanged. Ammo, ammo. And you can tell by the O that I, first person singular, am doing the verb. I am doing the action. I love, I am loving, I do love. Now find the verb's present stem by going to the second principal part and chopping off the RE. What's left? Ama is the present stem of the verb, and fill in the rest of the blanks with the present stem. And now add the present tense personal endings. We already have the O. Now add st, mus, tis, und. So we get amo, amas, amat, amamus, amatis, amant. Ammo, amas, amat, amamus, amatis, amant. I love, I am loving, I do love. You love, you are loving, you do love. He, she, it loves, he, she, it is loving, he, she, it does love. We love, we are loving, we do love. Ye love, ye are loving, ye do love. And they love, they are loving, they do love. Optime, very well done. Volete omnes.